Welcome up, Robert Olsén.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. My talk is called Imposter's Guide to Game Design. Here's my clicker. And these are my talking points. I'm going to talk about the imposter syndrome, which is, yeah, we'll get to that. And I'm going to do it through the kind of the lens of my own story, my career. It's going to be a bit self-centered, but it's hopefully we can find some. It's to find points where you can recognize your own story compared to mine, so you can use some of the lessons that I've learned coming into the industry to have an easier way in, so to speak. So throughout the talk, I've distributed a couple of lessons to easier handle the imposter syndrome. So hopefully if you feel like an imposter now when you got in here, you still feel like an imposter when you go out, but at least you have some sort of strategies to handle it. So this is me. I live in Gothenburg. I work in Gothenburg on wonderful development, former at Image and Form. I've been working at Image and Form since 2014, something like that, and I've been working on most of the SteamWorld games since SteamWorld Heist. I previously worked as a teacher for about 6 years, both in folk high school and an ordinary high school. I studied here at Högskolan i Skövde, University of Skövde, 2006 to 2009, in the game design program at that time. I play a lot of games, as most, not everyone, but most game developers, mostly card games and fighting games. We actually have quite a small community of fighting game players at Falktorp. We have become quite a few. So if anyone wants to challenge us in either Street Fighter V or Smash Ultimate, send me a line afterwards and we'll set it up. I'm also a dungeon master, the nerdy kind, not the other kind. But that's been less of that now with the pandemic and everything. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to talk about the imposter syndrome first to kind of set up the premise for this talk. And I'm sure most of you have already heard about it. I will try to break it down for you so we're all on the same page of what we're talking about. So the imposter syndrome, it's a psychological pattern where you doubt your skills and your accomplishments, kind of diminish yourself, and you have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. It's the feeling of when as if you have taken the back door into an establishment that you're not supposed to be in, and anytime now the guard will find out about where you are, so you have to hide your true self somewhere in this establishment, not to be found out. It's a feeling of you being in the wrong place, and it's quite common. The term was first used in 1978 in a study that was called the imposter phenomenon in high-achieving women. So it was first researched on women as a focus group. I think it was like 150 very successful women, and many of them had this the imposter syndrome. It has since then not been conclusive whether it's more common with women or men. But it's quite widespread, at least. So the imposter syndrome is very common. I have not done the study myself, but I've seen numbers of 70% and up, and I've found that it's very common in creative fields like writers, marketing, and game developers. I did a similar talk at my workplace, like this, just to inform about imposter syndrome at the workplace. And then I kind of just did a quick, raise your hand if you have had feelings like this. And I think everyone in the room except for one person raised their hand. So it was like 95% or something that had these kind of feelings. So it's very common. And it's often most prominent when you have a recent change, a new challenge that you just been put up against. So if you got a new job, a new assignment, a new position, that's where it's most prominent. Like if you got into the education just now, you might feel like, is this really right? Am I really here for the right reasons? Everyone else is much better than me. Or if you got a new, let's say you go from a to a lead position from a previously non-lead position at the company that you've been working on, then it's also maybe you advanced ahead of someone who has been working longer than you, and is it really me who should be the lead of this person who has been in the industry longer than me? A lot of feelings like that can bubble up when meeting a new challenge. And the effects of the imposter syndrome is different things. When faced with a new task, there's often two of the most common responses by an imposter is to either over-prepare or procrastinate until just before deadline. So the over-preparer or the perfectionist, or what you want to call it, is someone that will go to great length to do research and preparation to make sure that they complete the task to perfection, that there are no room for errors at all, so that no one can find any sort of critique against it. And that's of course very stressful, and it's often more work than is actually needed for the assignment. And or you can be the other type of imposter who procrastinates a lot before the assignment and just wait until the last second and just throw everything together in that you have been thinking of until you got the assignment, just trying to fit it in as quick as possible just to get it done just before the deadline. I would say I'm more of the later type. I work best just before the deadline, and I think, you're either often one of those types when it comes to being an imposter. An imposter often comes with anxiety problems and self-doubt problems as well. Just because it's so stressful to always kind of have to look over your shoulder to make sure that no one finds out that you're actually an imposter and you're at the wrong place. Why do you feel this way? I have listed a lot of things here, but it's really hard to say for sure. I mean, most psychological behavior is traced back to childhood, but it's there has been no really conclusive research from what I found that says one thing or another. But it can be a lot of things that is the reason you feel like this. You feel like you don't belong, or imposter. Yes, so let's talk about me. So I'm going to use my story as a lens for us to look through when we try to work through imposter syndrome and what sort of effects it might have on you. Hopefully you will recognize something about yourself while I'm talking. That's the ambition. One thing I want to say before I start talking about this is that I'm aware that this all these things I'm going to talk about my experience here, and it might have been completely different if I was not a white male. So I just want to make sure that I've stated that, because I think that's a very important aspect to this, but I'm not going to, that kind of deserves a talk of itself, I feel like. So I just want to have that said. So this is through my perspective. So I have a pretty generic nerd background, played a lot of games, didn't have any bullies or anything like that, so pretty uneventful backstory. I started. I painted a lot when I was a child. Draw a lot of. Yeah, everything. And my parents and my grandparents thought that yeah, he's gonna be an artist for sure. But my grandparents felt bad for my older brother, who was 4 years older than me, when we were visiting them, because I just draw a lot and he had nothing to do. So they bought a NES console so that he would have something to do. And I never drew anything after that. I just played the NES instead. So and even then I was very fond of card games. The Doom Trooper card game was released in Swedish, so I got that very early. And that's kind of the first encounter I had with any sort of game design, because I started to make my own cards, because then it was kind of like playing and drawing in a sense. I also dabbled a little bit with click and play. It's an old software, French software, where you kind of program the game by playing the game. You often ended up with some sort of breakout or Arkanoid type of game. That's kind of the only thing I knew how to make. At this time, of course, I didn't know that game design or game development was a thing. Games were just something that magically appeared in front of me, and I think that's true for many people at that age. You don't really think about where everything is coming from. So later, when I was about to apply after high school, basically, I studied science program in high school, and as most teenagers, I didn't know what to do. I didn't think about game design as an occupation then either. So I just threw out a bunch of ideas of universities that I think I applied to, like economics with focus on the Japanese market, and I was into manga at the time, and economics with a focus on the Chinese market, because the Chinese were on the rise, and also I think a translator education, and some weird game educations that I found on a högskolan in Skövde. And I didn't get the first three, so I got the fourth, the game design education. So I just thought, yeah, okay, I'll give it a try and apply. Didn't really know what I was getting into, because I didn't know very much about. I had dabbled, as I said, with click and play, and by that time I had also dabbled with RPG Maker a lot. So I had done stuff, but nothing real. I thought, at least. So yeah, I got to Skövde, and I think basically the entire first year, when I think back on it, it feels like I played Dota the entire first year at the education, because I didn't really know what I was supposed to do as a game designer. I felt like it's a bit too, yeah, non-specific tasks that you are expected to perform. So I didn't really know where to focus my studies. I remember maybe the first month I was here in Skövde, and I was strolling around in the corridors in the university and came across two programming students who were sitting late. Probably after a game of Dota that I just got out of, I strolled into one of the computer halls and saw them working on something, and just, yeah, what are you doing? And they said, yeah, we just managed to connect these two PCs so we can play together in multiplayer. And I was blown away, like, what? Can you do that? Can you just, yeah, so it's a network? Yeah, we just did it. We used the, it was one of the teachers who had a games library that they've used to do this. And that was kind of the first time I just, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing here. Like, we're working with, we can do stuff like that. I thought, yeah, I hadn't reached that kind of thinking yet. So that was an epiphany for me, weirdly enough. At the end of my third year, I didn't feel like I could work in game design. I didn't feel like I had a skill set. I hadn't done much. I wasn't proud of any of the projects I had done at all. Just felt like, yeah, this was fun. 3 years, very fun. Met a lot of interesting people, but work, I don't know. I don't have any particular skills. I'm not good at coding. I can't do art. I mean, I like games, but hard to find any sort of skill set. And I did some feeble attempts to kind of join some of the student projects that many of my fellow students were starting, you know, to start a company after their education was done. But I really didn't. I kind of didn't also, you know. I did too much of a feeble attempt to get any sort of recognition because I was so unsure of myself. I didn't feel like I had anything to contribute, so it was hard to kind of sell myself into joining one of the teams. I didn't feel I was worthy. But it just happened so that a small folk high school in the forests of deep in the woods of Småland near Vetlanda, a small Swedish village, had the ambition of starting a game development course, but they didn't have any teacher. They had collaboration with one school, but then the other school had kind of dropped out of the collaboration. So they were left with an education, a few applicants, and no teacher. So they sent a mail to the school and wanted help with finding teachers. And that mail was forwarded to me. So, oh, nice, this might be something. So I responded to email, got an interview, and got the job of being a teacher on this 1-year game development course just after I finished my 3rd year. And I hadn't taught much at all. I hadn't worked as a teacher before. So I felt really lucky just to land a job. And it was kind of pretty well paid as well. But the catch was, of course, that I had to prepare this. I got the job kind of just before the summer, and the course would start at fall. So I had to prepare it kind of week by week. Just before they were doing something, I would prepare it the week before. It was kind of the imposter's nightmare, because that was really, you know, feeling like an imposter every week, just presenting something very, very quick. But also you learn a lot by doing that, because you push yourself really hard. But I felt really, really lucky. But when I think back about it, it wasn't all luck. And here's where the first lesson comes in. You have to reframe your experiences. At the time, I felt this was just lucky. I just replied to an email, and now I got the job. So, yay. But if you reframe the experience and think about it, someone at the school, one of my teachers, actually thought that when they got this mail, they thought of me, so I must have done something to impress them. So, okay, that's a kind of a win for me. And also, I actually replied to the email, even though it wasn't really a job that I would feel that I had studied for. It was more a teaching job. And also, I was the only one who answered the email. No one else answered it from the other ones who got the email. So I was the only one who went to the interview out deep in the woods. So also kudos to me for going there. So you have to kind of find the parts that you actually did. So to reframe your experience to be something positive, to make it into something that you did to deserve what you got. Yeah, I'm talking too much. Okay. After that, I got another teaching job at a high school. In Lund, LBS Lund, and that was because I was tired. Because it was in Småland and we were living in Malmö, I had to live at the school I was working on and then go back on the weekends and then go back on Monday. So I got tired of that and got a teaching job closer to home. But this lasted for a year and was really fun as well. But in a high school compared to the folk high school, I had to manage 90 students instead of maybe 15. So also an imposter's nightmare to have 90 people just looking only at you, or hopefully looking at you, while you're talking every day almost, because there are so many there to judge you. Even if there are students, you are supposed to be there to kind of guide them somewhere. It was really, really tough to handle at the time. So I had a breakdown at that time. Just I couldn't handle it. I couldn't go to work for a while because I felt so I felt like I was cheating these young people from their future, kind of, because I felt so responsible. I felt so much like a fraud that I couldn't, you know, give them what they deserved, basically. So I had to quit that job, which was probably very good for me at that time, but I felt I could have handled that much better. And here's the next lesson. You don't have to be confident to act confident. I feel like when you go into new stuff, or when you are scared of something, or you know, and don't feel like you actually have what it takes, it often helps just, you know, pretending to be confident rather than, you know, leaning into the other side of not being confident, so that you can project some sort of confidence even if you're not. So if you start doing that each time you're doing something challenging, you will get into that mind space of being confident after a while. It's easier said than done, of course. It's just not that easy to be confident when you're not. But if you start kind of doing that mind trick on yourself to just be, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. You're all here because I'm very good at something. You know, if you start telling yourself that, it will become more and more true with time. Yes, I started work at Image and Form, and I got that job also a bit lucky, I would say. I tested SteamWorld Dig, which was one of the first success games that Image and Form did, and I got in touch with one of the developers there. And I got invited to the release party of SteamWorld Dig. So I went to the release party, and it was really fun, and I got to talk with the CEO and everything. And at that time, we were living in Gothenburg. We had moved there because my partner had gotten a job as a game developer there. But I still didn't believe that I had anything to do with, you know, I had no business going into game development at all. But after that release party, I kind of felt, yeah, at least I've met the CEO and talked with him, and he seemed like a nice guy, so there's no harm in just sending an email, I guess. So I sent an email and applying for a job. I had like a few, you know, game maker games that or not games, but, you know, started projects that I had made, so I showed them to them. But the guy that I've connected with beforehand during my testing with SteamWorld Dig just said, yeah, we'll just take you on and see how it goes. And by that time, we were living home with my parents and also my brother. So I really wanted to. Oh yeah, I have to speed this up. I'm talking too much. Okay, basically, I got the job when I applied for it, and I was really happy about that. We have to move on here. Is it really 1 minute left only? Oh my. Okay. Sorry. So it was my first job as a game designer. And I started my first month doing a board game version of the game SteamWorld Heist that I was supposed to work with. Because I felt like that was my comfort zone at the time. Just going back to my roots, I had done some card game designs before, so I went back to doing board games because that was what I kind of had worked with before. And here's another lesson. It's very important. I wish I had more time. Sorry, I talked too much. It's very important to admit that you don't have to know everything. You don't know everything. I can't code. I can't make art as good as some other people, but that's okay. I know other stuff. It's important that you kind of forgive yourself for not knowing everything. I'm sorry, we're gonna skip through these. We're gonna just go through the lessons here. This is about SteamWorld Heist, my first project. And I always had this philosophy that it's important to get experience when you can. I even tried a salesman in telemarketing just to try it out. At one time, I only worked for 1 or 2 months because I didn't like it. But I feel like when you get a chance to do something, I feel like you should take it. Like just respond to that damn email if you don't have anything else you want to do, because every experience counts, and every person you meet is a potential, you know, future partner. Ask for help. Experts love to talk about what they're experts at. You don't need to be experts in their field because they are. So if you don't know anything, ask someone who does. Most often when you work in teams, you have someone that's an expert in their field, and they love to tell you what you need to know, or most often. Let's go. Steam will dig 2. We're going to skip through a bunch here. This is an important one. Even if you are successful, I mean, I've released 4 games, yeah. But I still have these feelings, same feelings every time I release something. I'm not good enough, I'm just a fraud, I can't really do anything, I'm not good at anything, I just like games. And also, it's a very common feeling to have, so you kind of have to work with this over and over until every time it occurs to you. So it's not something that would just disappear when you get more successful. So don't sit around and wait for it to disappear. Oh no, they're after me, I have to speed up even more. SteamWorld Quest. Also, this is important, I touched on it earlier, but this is very common, so just realize that everyone here is feeling the same way you are, and no one feels like they are worthy of being here, most people anyway. There are some who does, and kudos to them. It's also it's a nice feeling to have. But it's very important to remember that. Lesson recap, I'm closing in on the end. Reframe your experience. Make what you've experienced something positive. Don't credit some outside force like luck or gods or anything like that for your success. Try to credit yourself as much as you can. Admit that you don't know everything, and that's okay. You don't need to know everything. Nobody knows everything. Everybody is good and bad at stuff, so it's okay. Get experience when you can. Let your past success. I skipped that, but think back of what you did before. How did that go? It went well. Probably will go well this time as well. Success won't make it disappear, as I talked about. You don't have to be confident to. You don't have to be confident to act confident. Ask for help. Realize the others feel this as well. And 2 bonus lessons, then I'm done. If you're working in an office or in a team or whatever, a student team, normalize it, talk about it. This is very common, as I said. If it's just in the open, it's less of a problem, so you don't need to carry it by yourself. Just raise the issue. I try to do that on my workplace, as I said, by having this kind of talk at my workplace as well. And also, some cheese at the end of this talk. Be kind to yourself so that you can be kind to others. I've been involved in many recruitment processes, and the most common thing we're looking for when recruiting people is good people. Oh no, it's super overtime. But it's easier to teach skills, like actually, how do you work in Maya. It's easier to teach that and to teach someone to be, a decent person. And to be a decent person, you have to be kind to yourself and take care of yourself, so that you can kind of transfer that to other people. So I'm going to leave you with that. Sorry that it was so much over time. Thank you so much for listening.
Big round of applause. Thank you so much, Robert. You're joining the studio now, right? So
yeah.
I'm going to let you head over there because we are going to a panel. So we won't take any questions right now, but maybe Robert will join Discord later. We'll hope so. So you can ask your questions on Discord, and hopefully you get some answers later. But like I said, it's time to head into the studio. So I will see you soon.
Yes, welcome here to our studio, cozy studio, or my living room, as I like to call it as well. Thanks for the great talk, Robert, and welcome to the studio as well.
Thank you. Sorry
as by magic you're here.
Sorry for being late.
No problem. It's we have some time after to cut into the break, so that's no problem at all. Really interesting to hear about the dynamics of a mind of a game designer, and I think it's good to talk about stigmas like that to take the pressure off.
Yeah,
because a lot of people feel a lot of pressure.
Yep.
So yeah, welcome here, Robert. And we also have two other excellent people with us, who I think should introduce themselves. So you go ahead, Claes, and tell us what you work with.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Claes Eriksson. I'm the co-founder and designer of Knacklemang Productions, and yeah, I'm here to talk a bit about design.
Yeah. I also have Rebecca with us.
Yeah. My name is Rebecca Falktorp, and I work as a gameplay designer at Palindrome Interactive.
And you're actually the third Palindrome employee we've had on. So.
Yeah, we had a couple come over and talk from all kinds of positions.
Yeah. So that's cool. So, as you said, the theme of this talk is be the one that makes the fun. So basically, we're going to focus in on game design, and you can also ask questions via Discord if you want to. We'll try to grab them, and if it's possible, we'll have some of our guests on Discord as well after, so you can speak directly to them as well. Anyway, if we start from the beginning, Claes, how did you get your current job at Knacklemang? You're self-made, basically, aren't you?
Basically. I mean, I created my job, I guess. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I mean, that was a journey of itself. And before that, I was teaching, actually, after I was done with my studies, and I did that for quite a long time.
Game design or something?
Yeah, game design and programming, actually. Okay. So those were the two things I did. And then I had like some smaller jobs where I did testing, and other than that, just creating my own small games. And then after a while, I thought like I really would like to try to make this a career, and I was really fond of the idea of creating something myself, basically, and that's where I am now. So we started the company last year, and we'll see where it takes us. We're kind of in the middle of it at the moment.
Did you save up, or did you get some funding?
Yes,
or
correct. So at the moment, my colleague and I, we saved up. So and we had quite a lot of like
a buffer.
Yeah, a buffer. So we got a quite good buffer now to try to make it ourselves. And I mean, that's a challenge, and we'll see if it works out for us. But yeah, let's.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed that you get the word out there, and maybe this will be a part of it as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully. So Rebecca, you're at Palindrome, as we said. How did you get that job? How did the process look like for you?
So my process come from. I guess when I studied, I come from a little bit of a different background. I studied languages at the start, so I was traveling quite a bit and was quite interested in esport back at the time.
Right.
And then I decided to kind of switch. I was a lot in Netherlands at the moment, so I studied at the university there. Okay. Same university as Anna Richter yesterday,
cool.
actually. So I knew her from school. And there's a lot of people from the university that's kind of been hanging around here in Skövde after, which is kind of fun. But I studied game design and architecture there. And I focused primarily on design and game production. And after that, during my fourth year, I was able to get an internship here. So I came back to Skövde from where I'm kind of originally from. And I worked at Coffee Stain for a year as an intern. And then after a couple of months, I started working at Palindrome.
Okay, so you closed the loop.
Yeah, kind of closed the loop indeed. I went out traveling and then I came back.
And what esports were you into, if you don't mind me asking, because that's my home turf. That's my day job.
Yeah, okay. I didn't play much, but it was like I started getting into primarily MOBA, so League of Legends and Dota 2. And I found that was kind of growing at the time. It was around, the early 2008, 9, 10.
Yeah.
And
it became big.
Yeah, it became big,
basically.
specifically here in West Europe. DreamHack started to have big accounts, and then ESL, and all that was growing. So I was really into that. I thought it was really fascinating. I was playing a lot of primarily League of Legends at the time. So I was kind of traveling around, going to small tournaments, and thought it was really cool.
So we're actually arranging a camp for women and non-binary this weekend in League of Legends. That's I'm always
That's cool.
Also have esports on my mind. Sorry for the derailing. Robert, you're at Thunderfall, as we heard, and we heard about your journey. But can you recap it for us?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I just stumbled through it there because I got so stressed over the time. So I also started as a teacher after I finished my studies here in Skövde. I studied game design here, but as I said, I didn't think about actually going into the industry because I didn't feel like that was something for me. But after my teaching jobs, I got into contact with Image Form through a friend's friend, basically, and started talking with them about making games and stuff like that. And then we went to the Steam World Dig release party and met the CEO, and kind of what, like, why not one try at joining the game industry? I'll send an email because now these people seem decent and it would be fun to work here. So I sent and applied for a job as a game designer because my friend had told me that they kind of in the need with game designers, rather had seniors, but I applied anyway. So I got a 1-month internship because at the time I was living with my parents, as I stumbled through in the presentation. So I really needed an income fast, and if I didn't think I would get a job. So I wanted just, okay, I can spare 1 month without applying for other jobs. So, but not more, because if I had 3 months internship, then I would be stuck with my parents for a long while. But in that 1 month, I built that board game version of SteamWorld Heist, and then they liked it enough to keep me.
Cool. Yeah, and that's really inspiring to hear as well, as you spoke about many people out there who are maybe doubting their skills or whatever, even if they have an education as well. So it's a good tale to tell, I think. If you would get some tips for aspiring game designers, how would you design your portfolio to be able to reach out to the companies out there? What would you say, Klaus?
Well, I mean, as my journey has took me into my own company, I mean, I don't know exactly how much I can comment on that, but I'm always for show, don't tell when it comes to these things. Yeah. And it's really, I mean, you can write as much about your ideas or how great you are or stuff like that, but in the end, it's really the content you've created or the possibilities that you can bring that is interesting. So depending on what kind of design you want to go into, is it level design, or is it more like balancing, or is it like what area you want to do, have content that reflects that. I mean, it's really similar to just, an art portfolio is just for the area which is design. Yep. And if it comes to ideas, then make games, have examples of your ideas, and it doesn't need to be like large stuff. And I mean, there's good possibilities for game jams and stuff like that to create stuff for your portfolio, and it's good to have that early and to see a progress of what you have, and then obviously select the best stuff for your portfolio. Yeah.
And Rebecca, if you would apply for a new job now, how would your portfolio look like?
So I think when it comes to portfolio, I think we can take a lot of inspiration from artists as well. I think it's important to have a compiled portfolio with a small amount of projects, but that more goes in depth of your process. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to actually be involved a little bit in recruitment for the last couple of months, and something that I see a lot is for designers to show a sheer volume of, like, this is my scope, right? Design has kind of the unique possibility of having all of these small branches with really, really small, intricate focuses. If you're more technical focused, you can branch into technical design or more scripting gameplay design. And there's like a lot of ways to show what kind of designer you are. And I think your portfolio should really reflect that. If you want to branch more into like narrative focus and you want to focus on narrative, create some projects that kind of shows that. For example, for myself, I wanted to try out some narrative focus, but also stay within my gameplay integration kind of niche that I prefer. So I did some prototypes and some game jams with people who wanted to try similar things out. I joined a mod team for a larger mod that needed mission designers or quest designers, and that was a good opportunity for me to branch out and then compile that in a nice, readable manner so you can see the process. I don't really, this sounds maybe harsh, but I don't really care much about the end product, because a lot of the times it's just a process for you to get better, right? Yeah. So I see more regarding your way of thinking. I want you to show some iterative parts. I'd rather see like a broken wireframe of things that you tried than see a really nice polished end thing, which can be definitely super cool too. But for me, if I'm looking into hiring someone, or if I want to be hired myself, I think the way you think, and kind of also, like you mentioned in your talk earlier, like being a good person and having like a nice, interesting way of approaching ideas is for me more interesting, I think.
Is there a search for someone who is not knowledgeable about game design really at all, just from a kind of hobby perspective, but is there a given way, because like ArtStation is the way for artists, I guess, one of the ways. Is there a similar way for designers to show off the work? Are there like given places you go to create a portfolio for designers, or do you need to do it by your own? Have you?
I thought game jams was a good suggestion.
Yeah.
You know, meet up with, if you don't know how to code, for example, you'll probably maybe be paired up with a coder who's really good at that, or an artist. I don't know of a specific place to kind of build your designer portfolio.
Right.
I personally create websites.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the easiest way to do it.
I think so too.
And there's a lot of like really simple templates way. Like there's a lot of software for creating custom website. I personally don't know how to create websites on my own. There's stuff like Weebly and there's another one, Wixie, I think, where you can create template websites and actually browse them up and make them very, very personal and nice and readable.
Right. What do you think are some do's and don'ts for showing off your work? What would you say, Klaus? It's like try to do this and try to avoid this when you want to show off your work.
No, I think we've already brought up a good point of just try to show. Your process, and also be selective on what you show. I mean, it's a good thing to have like a broad like work and created a lot of things, but you shouldn't take everything and try to mash that into a portfolio, because that creates kind of a very busy image, and it can get very difficult to read the person of what's your focus, or what are you trying to apply for even. So try to be more selective of your things if you can.
Yeah, and we're designer, right? So we love documentation, and I've seen so many designers, try to squeeze in a DDD and just feel like this is like 100 pages that I made, and it's super intricate and really, really defined. And you're like, I'm never gonna read that. I'm sorry, I don't have the time. Nope. So creating like a small little section of like, this is how I made a mechanic rather than this is how I designed my game is preferable.
What I'm most interested in a game designer is kind of how do you compromise? What sort of features do you create some sort of motivation or ambition? I want to do this thing, and then I want to see what kind of compromises were you forced to do when trying to make that thing. As you said, the end product is not very interesting. It's because when I'm working with another game designer, I want someone I can discuss with that has compromising skills, that can argument for certain features to be more important than other features for a reason, being the player experience or the type of game you're making. So I'm more interested of your thoughts in context of the kind of the sample or game that you try to show off when making when presenting your work, basically.
Yeah. What game design right now have had you saying, I wish I'd come up with that? Do you have any like mechanic or something like that you wish that you would come up with yourself?
When we were working with SteamWorld Quest, when we started working, Slay the Spire was released just at the start of the development. So we're like, oh god, but instead we thought like, we're doing something different. Anyway, we're focusing more on story and on the art than they did. They focused a lot of the gameplay and had really, really good gameplay.
Yeah, and really basic art, if I have to say.
Yeah,
and that's the choice. Don't need to criticize them because it's a fantastic game.
Yeah, it's an amazing game. So we thought, we'll use this as inspiration instead, and trying to live next to them instead of trying to compete with them.
Yeah. Was there any like really defined stuff that we'll borrow this mechanic, or we'll like redefine that mechanic, or can you tell us something about like?
Yeah, we took a lot of inspiration on how they handle combat, how they show intent of the enemies, and how you play your cards. Kind of, you have it's a random selection of your toolbox that you have to adapt to the enemy's intent, and I really like that aspect of it. You have some planning, you have some control of it because you're building your own deck in that experience, but there's still some randomization in it. So it's not just you can ace the game if you just know every detail of it.
Quickly gets a bit stale if you can min-max it from the start, I guess. Yeah.
So it's a really nice balance they have there. I think we kind of tried to hit that same spot somewhere in our design space.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the main point really of that question. I mean, there's always you can always see examples of games or ideas that's like, oh, yeah, I would really like to have made that or been the first one. But in the end, I mean, games is all about the product itself. So you know, it's just ideas, and it's how you create the final product of that idea that's interesting in the end. I mean, there's clones. At least there's you know. There's tons of first-person shooters, and there's still tons of first-person shooters because that kind of design sphere is not. I mean, there's so much you can do with it. So it's more or less just interesting to see new ideas from my perspective, at least, because then you're like, oh, how can I change this to maybe something else, or can I what can I learn from this? From the example you took, like what can you learn from Slave Spy in that example? And that's the most interesting part when it comes to design.
Yeah, and for you, you have explicitly said that Deolite is inspired by Left 4 Dead, for example, like a full-play co-op first-person shooter.
For the game we're making.
Yeah, right. And what things have you really looked at for Left 4 Dead? What aspects have you looked at and thought, yeah, this is something we want to iterate on? Or
I mean, Left 4 Dead is just has a really tight design space. So to try to be like a Left 4 Dead or a better Left 4 Dead is really hard. It's really, really hard. So I mean, we are trying to take a quite small core aspect of that gameplay, which is the 4-player co-op, which you argue we work and survive together, and that's the main point we're trying to take from that. I mean, and then we have some similarities that we have a lot of enemies. Yeah, okay, so they have zombies and Left 4 Dead, so I mean we have that aspect, but it's really that part which we're trying to take and learn from, because it's in the end we obviously try our best to create a great first-person game, but well, we are incorporating then other parts to that the game is more about, which is the instruction part. I don't know if I've told you the name of the game, but it's just follow the instructions. It's kind of like the core of the game.
Okay, yeah.
So you have objectives that you need to do at the same time, where you have to work together and battle these hordes of enemies.
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually answered the question, but
it was an interesting answer.
Either way, it's difficult to answer, but we obviously try to look at the core concept and try to take what we feel is important and is realistic for us to use.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a really good design tool in general, to find those kind of comparisons. I remember I was part of like a pitch workshop at one point, and one really useful tool for our pitches or just communication within design is just references all the time. I want to pitch this game that has the level design progression of Diablo, but inventory system of, you know, like all of these things. And if you can conclude that, if you're good at that, you can find some really good stuff and precise mechanical discussions from that. It's a good exercise.
Yeah, and also maybe it's, if you're an indie, for example, like helping you get people interested in your game as well, to say that you have nuances of this game, or you have systems that are similar to this other thing that you like. But I guess it's a balance, right? Because you don't want to come off as you.
Sometimes I feel like you just use them as buzzwords, and then it kind of a bit feels bad.
Yeah.
If you find good buzzwords, they're really impactful, right? You can close like really weird connections, like mixing Overwatch with like EverQuest, and something like, what is that? And you find that small intricate things.
Sparks a really interesting thing to. It sparks an interest for the viewer, I guess, as well. If you.
And when it comes to specific mechanics, kind of relating to the previous question, I think they're within design. I remember when I went to university, Ori and the Blind Forest first came out, and it became this big thing where like it's Metroidvania and it's very old school, and everyone who played previous Metroidvania could really feel it. And then they introduced the bash mechanic, and it was completely new. And I remember every designer in my class was like, "Why didn't I think of this? You know, like this is progressing almost the genre more than anything." And I think those kind of things we've been seeing more and more in the last couple of years, which is super exciting. And I wish like the posture system in Sekiro for like combat mechanics, and we've seen like a lot of new mechanics that really progresses.
And we have a lot less time than I would hope for here as well. I don't know if we can get some cue, if we can have, as I said at the start, if we could eat into the break a bit, but yeah, someone will need to tell me. Okay, if we'll have some tips for aspiring game designers who are watching this, what would that be? Like one or two tips?
My tips is create games. Basically, just pick a tool, use it, and create some games. Join some game jams if you can, and meet people. That would be my main part.
Right. Yep. Okay.
For me, I think it's about developing your own kind of confidence in your niche. I think there's a lot of tentativeness regarding using tools and so on. Yep. And I think it's definitely important to just use them and feel that you get comfortable. But I also think a lot of design tasks are very non-defined. Like, it's hard for you to decide how to progress with a task. Do I need to make visualizations for this? Do I need to prototype it first? Do I need to just create a concept document? And a lot of that is just, you learn by experience, but you also need to try things to see what works for you. So it's just start things rather than try to plan and be perfectionistic. That was my downfall in the start. Like, I planned too much, and I was trying to be very careful to get like the perfect pipeline, and it's better to just start and try things, for sure.
And I think that's true of a lot of creative work, like writing as well. Like, you almost, it's almost like when you're studying, you need to clean the house and you need to do the dishes, and then you can start, like, instead of just like, rolling up your sleeves and getting on with it. I realize that as well.
Yeah, those were two good answers. I agree. Make games, and I think you also, while you're making games or writing, design documents or whatever, just think about what you like about the work. What kind of designer are you? Are you more in the, I like to create interesting systems, or I like to, play around with different genres in new ways? Figure out what you like to do, so that you can, when you market yourself, you can present yourself as I am a game designer and I do this thing. Yeah.
To close it out, because we're also heading into overtime now. To close it out, no problem. It's really not a problem. It's really interesting to listen to both of you and you guys as well. But if we close out with what's the most important skill to have as a game designer in the industry, working in the industry, what do you say?
I mean, I don't know. It's gonna sound a little cliche, but I mean, patience and basically just a dare to try. I think really I like that. That nothing is perfect, and you just have to start somewhere. So that would be my main point.
I think that's also a really good one. Like, patience is super important. I think in general also, design acts like a bridge between a lot of departments. Tech needs you. The graphical department is going to scream at your ear at some point. Communication is kind of key. It's hard to be good at communication while you're also stressed because people need you and so on. So I think seeing things from different perspectives is really important, and communication is always like something you can prove.
Yeah, and as I said, like, being stressed and communicating in a constructive way is a really hard skill
it's really hard
to acquire, but I guess it's important as well. And Robert, please.
It's kind of a different phrasing of you guys said, but being good at compromising. Basically, I think it's a very important skill that entails kind of both the communication part, and also when you're designing a feature, you have to know what, if I put this in the game, then this is out. For example, you have to make those sort of decisions all the time.
Yeah, I guess it's hard as well, because a lot of time as designer, I guess you have a really clear idea what you want to do, and it can feel tough to compromise with your little babies that you've created.
But
for
you
yourself.
have to be able to just cut them up.
Kill your darlings, right?
Precis.
Right. Yeah. A big thanks to you for sharing all your knowledge with me and with the audience.
Thanks for letting us be here.
Thank you.
And I hope you have great success with everything you do in the industry as well.